Hello there, and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Yarnspirations.com. I'm excited. In this video, I get to show you a design by one of my good friends, Tamara Kelly from the Mooglyblog.com. This is the City Chic Crochet Bandana Cowl. Isn't this so super cute? This is such a quick project, and it only uses 2 balls of Chic Sheep by Marley Bird yarn. Along with the yarn, you need a size I crochet hook, a tapestry needle to weave in your ends, a good pair of scissors, and then I'm going to suggest a couple of stitch markers, especially for those of you who are beginners. It will help you keep those edges nice and straight. This is a free pattern available at Yarnspirations.com. I'll put a link to the pattern in the video description box right down there below, and while you're down there, smash that like button, as my kids say. Once you have that free pattern and your materials, join me back here and I'll get you started on this super quick and easy bandana cowl. Bandana cowls are all the rage right now. My daughter and her teenage friends are in love with these, and it is super simple to make. This cowl is a 2-row repeat, meaning every 2 rows, we will repeat the same pattern. So once you know the first 2 rows, you will be good to go. It also changes colors every 2 rows, and we will just be carrying the color up along the side every time we wish to change colors, meaning we don't have a whole lot of ends to weave in, which is really brilliant. We begin right down here at the center of the bandana cowl, and we work our way up all the way to the top. And then when we finish it off, we add a round of single crochets all the way around the bandana cowl, and then another round of single crochets on top of that. What that means is those of you who are beginners, who are venturing out past just the single crochet, this will be a really fun, quick, and easy project for you with my help. As we work along, I will show you how to use these stitch markers at the beginning and end of your rows, so that way you are always working your stitches in the very last stitch you're supposed to work into, so your edges will be nice and straight. Let's go ahead, grab our crochet hook and our yarn, and get started right down here on the bottom of our bandana cowl. We will begin with a slip knot directly on our hook. So I'm placing a slip knot on my hook, and I will chain 10 stitches. From here, I want to do a single crochet in the second chain from hook. Remember, I never count the loop on my hook, so I will count 1 and 2. I will go directly into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So that is my first single crochet. I'm also going to take my stitch marker, and you see that V right behind the loop on the hook? I will place my stitch marker right through that V, because that is the last stitch of my row, and I want to make sure I know where that is. Once I do that single crochet, I chain 2. I will skip 3 chains, so I don't count the one I just worked into. I skip 1, 2, 3. In the 4th chain, I will yarn over my hook, go into that 4th chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, draw through 2 loops on my hook. Now I want to repeat that 2 more times. So I yarn over my hook, go into that stitch or that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over my hook, go into that same chain, I'm through the same chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So I have 4 loops on my hook. I yarn over and draw through all the loops on my hook. That is a 3 double crochet cluster. So I did not complete any one of those double crochets individually. I partially completed each one, and on the final yarn over and draw through, you'll see it leaves me with just 1 stitch up here at the top. I only have 1 V there, but it gives me this nice cluster stitch, okay? It's a very easy stitch to make, and that's the stitch we will use throughout the pattern. I will now chain 2. So, whoops, chain 1, chain 2. I will skip 3 chains. So skip 1, 2, 3. In the 4th one, I will place a single crochet. Okay. That's the tip
at
of
this point,
my
the pattern
bandana
wants
cowl.
us to cut this yarn. So what I will do is go ahead and snip my yarn, leaving at least 4 to 6 inches. Don't leave this tail super short, okay? It's too hard to weave in. And then I'm going to go ahead and undo this last single crochet I did. And I'm going to show you how I can change colors in this last stitch, because we are going to do that throughout the pattern here, okay? So in this last stitch, I will go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with my color I was using, only now I'm going to grab the color I want to change to. I want to make sure I leave a nice little tail of that color also, and I will yarn over with the color I'm going to change to and pull up a loop. See how that leaves the color of the stitch just one color, but the loop on my hook is the second color I want to use. So that's the best way to change colors in my opinion. And now we're ready for row 2. First, we have to turn our work because that was the last part of the instructions for row 1. I'm just going to ignore all of those tails, just hold them out of the way. And the instructions for row 2 have us put a single crochet into this first single crochet. So I will go into that first single crochet, and notice I have both of the legs on top of my hook, meaning I'm not just working through the back loop or just through the front loop or the back leg or the front leg, however you want to say it. I'm working through both of them or under both of them, and I'm completing my single crochet. Now once again, I want to take my marker, and the stitch I just created, it looks like a V behind the loop on my hook. I'm going to take my marker and place it right through that V. That lets me know that's the last stitch of this row. Once you do your single crochet, you will chain 7. Now we're going to skip all of these stitches right here, come all the way over here to where we have this marked stitch, and I will go into that stitch that we have marked and work a single crochet there. Now we go on to the 3rd row of the setup row. So we will turn our work, that was the last part of the instructions of row 2, and we begin row 3. We will start off with the chain 5. Now we want to do a single crochet in the second chain of this chain 5. So I will go into the second chain and work a single crochet, just like so, okay? Now I will chain 2, and I will do a cluster right here into that first single crochet. All right, so I've yarned over my hook, go into that first single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So that's my first partial. Remember, I have to have 3 of them. So I yarn over my hook, go into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. It's my second partial. Yarn over my hook, go into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. I now have 4 loops on my hook. I yarn over, draw through all 4 loops, and that completes my double crochet cluster. So I carry on with a chain 2, and we have this entire 7 chain space here, and I'm simply just going to single crochet in that entire space. I'm not going into any one particular chain. I'm just single crocheting in that whole space. Then I will chain 2. I will do another double crochet cluster right here into this last single crochet. It's one I have marked. So I will go in to that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So that's the first part. I have to do that 2 more times. So I have 4 loops on my hook, yarn over, draw through all 4 loops, okay? I'm not done yet because I have to chain 2, and now I want to do a treble crochet into that same stitch, all right? So I have to yarn over my hook twice, come back to the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. All right, so as you look at this, you can see it's very symmetrical. I have my chain 5 and then I have my single crochet there. Then I chain 2, there's my double crochet cluster, chain 2, single crochet in my 7 chain space, chain 2, double crochet cluster, chain 2, treble crochet. You see how that looks? Now I want you to notice I didn't move my markers up, and it's not because they're not supposed to be moved up, it's because I forgot. So what you could do here is if you forget, simply take the marker out, come up here, find the last stitch of your row. It's actually going to be that single crochet you created, and make sure you put your marker into that stitch. It just makes it so much easier. Hopefully you're not like me and you don't forget and you put it in as soon as you create that first stitch and you won't have a problem. We have finished the setup row and we will continue on in the striped pattern. So the next 2 rows are actually what you will do for the rest of the body of the bandana cowl. You will now also float the colors up as we go along instead of cutting the yarn and rejoining the color each time. So let's talk about how we're going to do this, because we have to change the color in the last stitch of the previous row, right? That's how we changed colors. That's what we did last time. So let's go ahead. We're going to pick up our work here, and I'm going to undo just one of the last pull throughs of that last treble crochet. So I undid one. I'm going to put those 2 loops on my hook. Okay, so I didn't undo the whole thing. I just undid one of them. Now I'm going to grab my color A. I'm going to leave a nice little tail there, but I'm not cutting my color B. I'm just grabbing my color A. I yarn over my hook and pull through. So my color B is still there, but my color A is now on my hook, and I can carry on. So this is our repeat. This is what we will do for the entire rest of the pattern for the body. So I start off and I will chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1. It really doesn't matter whichever way. I will single crochet in the first stitch. Now I will do 7 chains. I want to also remember, take my marker here, I want to put it into that first single crochet we did. Oop. Make sure I'm getting this right. I didn't forget this time. Okay, so I did my 7 chains. I'm going to jump over here to where this single crochet is, and I will single crochet into that single crochet, and I will do 7 chains. And I will jump all the way over here to this single crochet. Luckily, we have it marked. See how helpful those markers are? And I will do a single crochet into that single crochet. Pretty easy, right? I'm going to take this out so that way I know to move it up. All right, so here we go. We will start off. We will chain 5. Turn our work. You can turn and then chain 5. I want to do a single crochet in the second chain from hook. So in the second chain from hook, I will work a single crochet, and that is the last stitch of my row. So I would take my marker and put it into that single crochet. Haha, I remembered. Okay, so I've done that. Now I will chain 2. I need to do a double crochet cluster into this single crochet right there. Okay, it's this one. So I come all the way over there and I will work my double crochet cluster. So there's my first partial, my second partial, and my third partial. Yarn over, draw through all 4 loops on my hook, chain 2, single crochet into this entire space right there, chain 2, work a double crochet cluster into this single crochet. So I've yarned over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, insert my hook in the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, go into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through all 4 loops on your hook, chain 2, single crochet into this 7 chain space, chain 2, double crochet cluster right here into that marked stitch. See how helpful it is to have it marked? So there's my first partial, my second, my third, yarn over, draw through all of them. I'm not done yet, remember? I have to chain 2, and now I'm going to do a treble into that same stitch there. And at the end of this treble, I'm also going to change colors. So we're going to do all of this right now. Are you ready? Yarn over your hook twice, go over here to this space, that stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, and this time when we have to go through these 2, we will drop the color we're using, pick up the color we want to switch to. It's down here waiting for us. We're just going to float it up, yarn over with your new color, and pull that through. Now the biggest thing to think about here is you want to make sure that you're not pulling this float up so that it pinches. See how that pinches your fabric? We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the float is the same height as the stitch we just created. Now we have our yarn on our hook ready for our next sequence, and our other color is just hanging out there. So we can turn our work, chain 1, single crochet in the first single crochet. So this is just a repeat, right? This is the repeat of row 1 of my stripe pattern. I just put my marker into that first stitch. I will now chain 7, come all the way over here to where this single crochet is. You see where I am? And I will do a single crochet right there, chain 7, I will come all the way over here to where this next single crochet is and single crochet there, chain 7, and come all the way over here to the last single crochet, which we have marked, and single crochet there. Okay, pretty easy stuff. Let's go ahead and work row 2 of the stripe pattern repeat, just so that we are both on the same page and can work through this together. We start off with the chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we single crochet in the second chain from hook. So I'll go into the second chain from hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. This is where I take my marker and I put it into that V behind the loop on my hook. Okay, that'll be my last stitch. I now want to do my double crochet cluster into this first single crochet. So I'm going to do that here. I think by this point, you shouldn't need me to talk you through it. Then you chain 2. We will single crochet into this chain 7 space, chain 2, double crochet cluster into this single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into this chain 7 space, chain 2, double crochet cluster into this single crochet. You see how this just is repeating and it's gradually getting bigger and bigger. Each time we go across, we get more clusters to do and more chain 7 spaces. Chain 2, my final cluster in the end here. chain 2, and this is where I will do my treble and change colors at the same time. So I yarn over my hook twice, go into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, and on my final yarn over, I drop the color I was using, pick up the new color I want to use, carry it up here, make sure it's not pulling right, yarn over and pull through with the new color. Okay, see it's not pulling, and I'm ready to move on. So I would chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, and carry on in the pattern, making sure I add that marker because it's very helpful, and just keep going. For the pattern, you carry on repeating rows 1 and 2 for the set number of times as indicated in the pattern. Now, in theory, you could just keep repeating it forever and ever and ever. You don't have to stop when the pattern tells you to stop. However, if you do that, you will need more yarn. When you get to where the stopping point is, you do want to end after a row 2. You want to make sure it's after the double crochet cluster row. When you get to that point, it's time to do the very simple single crochet border, which is just a single crochet edging around the entire bandana cowl you've created. When you've reached the final row of your bandana cowl and it's time for you to do that treble crochet, you will simply work the treble crochet without the color change, because at this point we are actually going to finish off our color right there. So I've chained 1. I will, whoops, throw my scissors around. I will cut my yarn, and I always leave 4 to 6 inches. Give that a pull and give it a tug. Now that your bandana cowl is fastened off, you can go ahead and lay it down. You can cut the other color also. I have to cut that one. And your piece will look a lot bigger than this, but I didn't want to make the whole thing for the video. There's no reason for me to. It also looks like I have more ends than what you would. You'd have these 2 ends at the top of your cowl, but you would have these down here at the start. Before you can move on to the next portion of the cowl, it is important that you weave in your ends. So the final row that you did, that is your right side row. So this is the right side of your bandana cowl. So what I will do is I will rotate this over, grab your tapestry needle, and you will thread your tail onto your tapestry needle. And working through the same color of stitch as the yarn that's on your needle, you want to weave in your tails, okay? So I like to go through the base of the stitches first, especially when it's this nice big cluster. So I will work my way one direction, and then I actually split the yarn. I take my needle and I go through the yarn and go back the opposite direction. And then I do that one more time. You can see I'm literally splitting the yarn. I'm burying my ends, okay? Once I've done that, that end is not going to come out. Do not fool yourself and think that if you just crochet over the ends, it's going to be good enough. You're going to be wearing this. It's going to be jostling around your shoulders and chest, and those ends will eventually work their way out. So take the time, grab your tapestry needle, and just weave in your ends. It doesn't take that long at all, and it's just that nice finishing touch that you can do for your project, especially if you happen to be making this for a gift. You don't want those ends to pop out on somebody when they're wearing it and they could be like, oh, well, that was kind of a shoddy job, don't you think? You don't want that. So we want to make sure that you do weave in your ends nice and neat. And that's why you want those nice long tails when you cut your yarn, because it makes it so much easier to weave in your ends. Once your ends are all woven in, it looks a little something like this, and your floats are showing at this point, but with this round of single crochets you're going to do, it will hide those floats. You're going to crochet around that float as you work along that treble, okay? So it's going to be hidden. Now you could use either one of these colors for your border. It doesn't really matter. So I will let that be up to you. But the instructions say we're supposed to join with a slip stitch over here into the first single crochet of the last row we did. And then we're just supposed to single crochet around the entire bandana, making sure that we do 3 single crochets in each one of the corners. So let's just grab our creme de mint color here. I will go into that first single crochet of my row, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through that loop. That is called a slip stitch join. And now I want to do my single crochets. So I will chain 1 and I'll single crochet in this first stitch. And I know that I have a double crochet cluster right here, so I'll single crochet into that one. And then I know I have 2 chains there, so I could work into each one of those chains. So far, it's very easy to keep it nice and even, right? Because I know what these stitches are. Where we will come into, not trouble, but really have to be a little bit more creative in making sure that our stitches are nice and even and uniform is as we go along these side edges. So right now I'm just going along my row with single crochets. And I am working into those chain stitches because why not? They're there, they're an actual stitch, and it makes it very easy for me to know that my stitches are nice and even. Super easy. So far, so good. These are just single crochets, you guys. Nothing really spectacular about this, but this is a nice finishing touch to the piece. I'm down here to the final single crochet of this edge. I've put 1 there, and I'm going to place 2 more because this is going to allow me to go around this corner, okay? Can you see how that lets the stitches begin to take that 90-degree angle? And I can rotate my work, and now I can work down along this edge. And I have a decision to make. I can work into these actual posts, or I can work around the post. Whichever way you decide is perfectly fine. Just be consistent with it. Let's just see what both ways look like. It actually is kind of difficult for me to get into the post. So let's see, I got 1 there. Oops, didn't even. So that's into the post. And remember, this is our treble, so I have a rather long post to work with here. And do we have another? Let's see. So I got 3 stitches into that one, and that looks pretty good. It looks pretty uniform. It looks like I worked into actual chains, doesn't it, as I worked into the post. This is the stitch that the post was worked into, so we can work into that one. And then this here is the single crochet, and now we're back to the post again. So here I'm going to work into the post, but not only that, I am crocheting around that float. So I'm working into the post of the stitch, and I'm going around that float. So it's hiding the float. All right, so I got my 3 single crochets into that treble, and I'll do 1 down there. Now for me, that's nice and even, okay? For you, you might need a little bit more, you might need a little bit less. That's okay. That's the beauty of not having to do a set number of single crochets around the bandana. You just want to make sure you're making it look nice and even on yours. So there's 2, this would be 3. There's a single crochet into the stitch. There's a single crochet in the top of that single, and it looks really good. So I'm doing this all the way down to the corner here. When I get to the bottom corner, I will be sure to place 3 single crochets in that corner, so I get a nice turn. Now the corner, I'm just gonna see how I have that spare loop there. It's the spare loop that was on my chain. I will do all 3 single crochets around that loop. I usually call that the butt of the stitch, the butt of the chain. So I'm just doing my 3 single crochets there, rotating my work. Now I'm working up along this edge. This edge, I have nice chains to work into. It's not actually the body of the, or the post of the the treble, I can work into these nice chains that we have. So that makes it a little bit easier as you're working up. Okay, hopefully this is pretty easy for those of you who've never worked a edging before. I'm keeping it pretty simple. Just find those chains and work into them. When you come up to the beginning where we joined with our slip stitch, I want you to remember we only did one single crochet there. So we want to make sure we do 2 more because that is a corner. So we do 1 and 2. And now we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet. So I'm joining with a slip stitch to the first single crochet, okay? And I'm not fastening off, I'm not turning, I'm not doing anything. So that finishes the first round of the border. Once you finish round 1 of the border, Tamara wants us to do an extra round. And on this one, she changed it up just a little bit. She has us putting 2 single crochets into one stitch, skipping a stitch, and then doing 2 single crochets in the next stitch. Just working that all the way around and making sure that when we get to the corners, we do place 3 single crochets in the corner. I'm going to show you how to do this, but if you want to just do single crochets all the way around with the 3 single crochets in the corner, you could do that as well. Totally up to you. Both ways will look lovely. So we start off here. We did not turn our work. We will chain 1. And in this first stitch, I will place 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and 2. Skip a stitch, do 2 single crochets in the next. Skip a stitch, do 2 single crochets in the next. And you can see how this goes, right? Skip a stitch, do 2 single crochets in the next. Just gives a nice little finishing edge here. Skip a stitch, 2 single crochets in the next. Skip a stitch, 2 single crochets in the next. You can see here, it just makes a nice little difference of a stitch versus just single crochets completely. It's just a nice, just a little subtle change here. It's actually very lovely. I like it a lot. I've never done this before. And it's a nice little addition to a very simple bandana cowl. And I'm coming up to my edge here. So let me see here. This would normally be my skip and I'd put 2 right here, but I will put 3 here because this is my corner. And then I just carry on. I'll skip 1 and I'll put 2 into the next. There's 1 and 2. Skip 1 and just keep going. Oh, this is pretty. This is lovely. I take back what I said earlier. You should totally do this. This is very pretty. When you come up to the final corner, make sure to do those 3 single crochets. And then you will join with the slip stitch to the first single crochet you worked. And we will fasten off. So I always chain 1, cut my yarn, leaving 4 to 6 inches, and I'll give that a tug. Okay, so now that is my bandana cowl laid down flat. I have 2 more ends to weave in. And the last thing to do is to bring these 2 points together and sew them together. So what's handy here is I have these nice tails. I can use them to actually sew this together. So I can bring the 2 points together, okay? And I'm going to use my tail here, and I'm literally just going to go through 1 single crochet, come over here, and go through the next single crochet. So I brought it together like a figure 8. And then I am going to go down the center of the single crochet and come up through the center of the next one. I'm going to come over here to this side. I'm going to go down the center of that single and come up the center of the next one. Go down the center of the one that I came out of, go up the center of the next. down the center of the one I came out of, up the center of the next. Give it a pull. It's going to pull those two edges together nice and neat. All I do now is flip it inside out, take my tail, weave it to the inside. Again, you want to make sure you go through several times so it doesn't come undone. Still have that one to weave in, but let's take a look at what we have here. If I turn it back out, look how cute. It looks like a little, I wonder if that would fit my dog Lucy. I bet it would, like a little bandana cowl. But look how adorable that is. And honestly, guys, that 2 single crochets, skip 1, 2 single crochets, I've never done that before. It's such a simple little subtle difference, and it just looks really good. It takes out that the monotony of just plain single crochets all the way around one by one. But there it is. It's sewn together, super easy, and yeah. How adorable is this little bandana cowl? I know that you can make one of these, whether you're a beginner crocheter or an advanced crocheter. This is going to be a lot of fun to make, and everybody you know is going to want one. I'm serious. They are fun to make. They're fun to wear. You could add tassels. You could add a pom-pom. You can make them in multiple colors. You can make them in one color. Sky is the limit. You could even just continue on in the pattern, not stopping when the pattern tells you to, and make it into a full-size shawl. That would be very lovely as well. I would like to take a minute and thank my friend Tamra for designing this beautiful pattern with my yarn. I really do appreciate it. And when you guys get a chance, make sure you subscribe to the Moogly YouTube channel. She's here on YouTube, and you can check her out over at themooglyblog.com. It's a pretty good resource for great patterns. That's it for this video. I hope you learned something new. When you make your bandana cowl, make sure you share with me on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag Yarnspirations so that way I can see your finished project and smash your like button. I'm Marley Bird. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.